So check this out. This happened. We're going to watch it.
Representative Ilhan Omar. Of a really great state. I almost won, first time in decades and decades, Minnesota. Great state. He goes home now to mommy and he gets reprimanded, and that's the end. Sorry, mommy. Sorry, mom. And obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds.
So that is the President of the United States. And chants of send her back in regards to Ilhan Omar started. And so first of all, throughout that video, the first thing it looked like there was a protester who was in the audience and said something, and then I guess that protester was removed. And Trump's response was, they're going to go home to mommy. Sorry, mommy. And then he mentioned Ilhan Omar. People started chanting, send her back. And he was totally cool with it. It was just kind of like, whatever, no big deal, no problem. Okay, it gets, there's more to it. There's more to it. Like, Ron, wow, does this get worse? Kind of. Let's check out this other video.
The leading voices of the Democrat Party are left-wing extremists who reject everything our nation stands for. But again, I have to tell you, this vote was so big. I have to thank many of the Democrats. I mean, that was an amazing. No, I really do. I respect it. I really do. That was a slaughter. But many of those people.
So I think he was referring to when the Democrats gave him what he wanted for the border.
Many of those people that voted for us were Democrats, and I want to thank them because they did the right thing for our country. Republicans know that America is the greatest force for peace and justice in the history of our world. But these left-wing ideologues see our nation as a force of evil, the way they speak so badly of our country. They want to demolish our Constitution, weaken our military, eliminate the values that built this magnificent country. You have to look at some of their recent comments, which are never talked about. When you see the 4 congresswomen, oh, isn't that lovely? I'll give you just a couple. I have pages and pages, but we don't want to bore you. We don't want to go too long. But we have to give a couple because that's the great thing about live television. They can't cut it. Representative Ilhan Omar. Of a really great state. I almost won, first time in decades and decades, Minnesota. Great state.
All right, so this is the thing we saw before. This is picking up where we started. I guess this is a heckler or a protester, and they're getting kicked out. And this is a different view of that. So we saw it from the other side where they're kicking the person out. And instead of saying like, hey, let's keep it peaceful, let's keep it under control here. Is everyone okay? That's not what Trump says. Here instead is what Trump has to say about it.
By the way, I keep hearing how much enthusiasm is in the radical left. I don't think they have enthusiasm. They're just fighting with each other. We have all of the enthusiasm. He goes home now to mommy and he gets reprimanded, and that's the end. Sorry, mommy. Sorry, mom. Didn't mean to embarrass you, mom. But it's true. We have the enthusiasm, folks. Look at this. Look at this. And by the way, thousands and thousands of people outside and people that couldn't get in. Thousands.
Okay, I think we get it. I think we get it. You know, this is one of those things. Here's another, for instance, of Donald Trump. This is what the GOP is. Donald Trump, this is the result of our system at work. This is the result of it. Donald Trump is just the GOP minus subtlety. That's exactly what he is. This is the GOP. And in regards to Ilhan Omar, you know, when Ilhan Omar criticized AIPAC, many of her own colleagues threw her under the bus. Then later, when she was facing actual Islamophobic threats, her colleagues were silent. They did not come to her defense. And now, even after Trump, after this happened at a Trump rally, the response is lukewarm at best. And this is why, generally speaking, good people don't run for office. This is why right here, this happened. This totally just happened. Donald Trump is the president. This is absolutely ridiculous on so many levels. And this is what the GOP is. I mean, these people try to make it out like Trump's some rogue, Trump's some, like the system was fine and then Trump showed up. No, Trump is a result of the system. Trump is the mirror showing people what the GOP is. The GOP used to have this nice little mask on that made it seem nicer. And that mask was a smiling picture of George W. Bush. And then Trump just sort of ripped that mask off. And this showed the GOP for what it actually is. And what does the, quote, opposition do? Well, as Donald Trump himself said, sometimes they just straight out help out. They help out. And this is our system. Like this is our system that we're supposed to hold dear. Everyone's a bunch of people after this happened that are sounding like they're trying to be in defense of Ilhan Omar. They're saying it's time to take our democracy back. Our quote unquote democracy got us to this point. Are you referring to the democracy that has gerrymandering everywhere? The democracy that has superdelegates? The democracy that has a dishonest election process, the democracy that purges people from polls, that purges people from the voting records, that hands them these temporary ballots that aren't going to be counted, that calls the election for a certain candidate before they're supposed to, that tampers with the results, that doesn't let other opponents see the results. That democracy, the democracy that has unlimited money in politics, the democracy where the donor class bets on every team, that's the democracy we're supposed to save? No. That's the, quote, democracy that got us to this point. That's what got us to Donald Trump. And a lot of the GOP, like most classical conservatives, by the way, don't identify with the GOP at all. And most of the GOP, they just, Trump talks mean. Trump gives an honest assessment of what they're all about. They don't want that. They want something more subtle. And that's it. So these are the choices in the United States. A fringe neo-fascist political party that I don't think exists in any other type of similar democratic experiment, not to this degree. Noam Chomsky himself says the GOP, one of the most dangerous entities going on in the world. Or you have the Democrats who stand for absolutely nothing and are in opposition to the GOP the way the Washington Generals are in opposition to the Harlem Globetrotters. When you have a system like that, this is what you get. That's an actual rally of a president. And what's supposed to be a democracy. It's not. We're not. And, you know, I do think Ilhan Omar is one of the diamonds in the rough, so to speak, in our process. I do think there are some folks in office trying to do the right thing. I think she's one of them. If I was her, I would have a hard time not telling most of my colleagues to go fuck themselves today. Most of my colleagues who threw me under the bus when it came to APEC, who didn't have my back when I was facing Islamophobic threats, if I'm Ilhan Omar. And I guarantee you some of them today are going to be like, hey, we stand with you. And if I was her, I'd have a hard time not saying, fuck off. That's why I'm never going to run for office. One of the many reasons.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and